How are you? Smart. Well, I've heard it all before. I have. I've heard you saying before, they never listen. They have these consultations, but they don't listen. They don't take a blind bit of notice. It's just something they have to go through. Well, what a turn up for the Bucks. They've taken people's thoughts into consideration for the congestion charge. For the TIF proposals. Well, yeah, I know. Why do they keep calling it that? Whether those proposals will be any more welcome, or will render the TIF proposals and thus congestion charge any more welcome, is a matter of debate, and indeed we may have that debate. But I've got a rundown of them. Of the changes, should we say, or the results of consultation. Quite a lot. First of all, the East Lancashire Railway, does that mean we're going to have steam trains going through the centre? Steam trains arriving at Piccadilly again. I'm quite looking forward to that. A little bit of nostalgia. They'll be able to run in the snow, because they always used to be able to do that. They'll be able to run in the snow, and they'll be quicker. So that'll be belted. I like the idea of that. But maybe not. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? But that's what it seems to say. The East Lancashire Railway will be running trains into Manchester. Well, the only trains they've got are dirty, great, big steam-uns. So that'll be absolutely fantastic. I'm going to put my name down for job of footplate man. I'm not being the shoveler. That's pig hard, that. Did you ever do that? Oh, God, it was hard. I've never done it, but just watching it. Anyway, here we are. A move. This is how it's described in the Financial Times, no less. A move to defuse Manchester critics. Lorries could be spared the road fee. Now, first of all, they're going to get the first 12 months. If the meter of the 10 local authorities, AGMA, they've got a meeting on Friday. And if the proposed changes are accepted, then these are the kinds of things that will happen. For the first 12 months after the introduction of the congestion charge, lorries won't have to pay. Also, we had a question the other day, you might recall. We had a question from a bloke who said, well, I'll be crossing the lines, both of the diameter lines, I'll be crossing both of them during the course of a day in my work. Will I have to keep paying? Well, that has now been answered. Had I been answering the question the other day, the answer would have been, well, yes, you'll have to pay every time you cross it. But that's changed now. People who cross it hither and thither will only have to pay once. So you'll only be charged once to cross the line, as it were, dependent on which direction you're going in. So that's good news for those who are going to use it a lot. The maximum daily charge was going to be £10. That's been halved. The maximum daily charge will be cut from £10 to £5, with a pledge that no user will pay more than once for entering or leaving a charging zone while the charge is in operation, no matter how many times they cross the boundary. So if you're interested in that's a bonus, if you like. And people on the minimum wage would be given a 20% discount on public transport fares and the congestion charge, although how they come to be driving a car when they're on the minimum wage is beyond me. So there it is. As I say, there's a meeting taking place at the weekend, well, on Friday, where these matters will be discussed. But what do you think? No, indeed, what do you think about anything? What would you like to talk about? Usual numbers, 01612282255. Email address, radiomanchester@bbc.co.uk, and the text number 07786 206 951. Going to be with Mike in Withenshaw in a moment.
On BBC One.
Dad!
No, Max, you're out of control.
Yeah, well, you stuck your nose in where it wasn't wanted.
You leave this to me, or so help me God, I will find this imaginary gun. I'll shoot you myself.
He's made his bed, but will he lie in it?
Max don't matter anymore.
October 30th is Judgment Day for Max. There's more to EastEnders. Thursday night at 7:30 on BBC One.
There's more to EastEnders, and it's still not my cup of tea. Mike in Withenshaw. Hiya.
Hi, Alan. Neither mine as well. But you know what they say about you may get what you might wish for? Well, I was travelling down the road, just past Granada, and there was a steam train on the track, running along.
Really?
Honestly, it was. It looked like an old one. Not the big, huge ones, but certainly steam coming out of it and various other bits and bobs like they do.
And was it a bog standard steam train?
I would say it looked a smaller gauge than the big one.
I think you might have got a glimpse of the imitation rocket
That could have been it.
at the Museum of Science and Industry.
Right. Yeah. So it was just floating past above a bridge.
Yeah, I'm almost certainly, if it's in the vicinity of Granada, then
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's going to be the Museum of Science and Industry running the rocket, which is half size. It's half the
Right,
original
yeah.
size.
Yeah. Just thought I'd let you know anyway.
Well, thank
just
you very
in
much.
case it did
Although, of course,
come true.
there may be more of that now if the East Lancashire Railway are going to be involved in our integrated transport scheme.
Won't it be pleasant?
Well, I'm not sure. We look back at it with nostalgia, but I can remember more than once getting a cinder in my eye.
Ooh.
It wasn't all. You see, it's not all pleasant, is it?
No, it's not. No.
All right, have a good day, Mike.
All right.
Cheers. If you know different, do put us right. But my first thought is that any steam train in the vicinity of Granada Television is going to be that one. So there. When are the traffic lights at McVitie's going to be set back to what they were 4 weeks ago? Asked John in Stockport. I'm not able to answer that. I don't know. I once rode a tandem bicycle through the traffic lights. And it's of no relevance to anybody, but I once rode a tandem bicycle through the traffic lights by McVitie's. I came down past McVitie's and turned left and fell off not long after. Anyway, after the congestion charge vote, he posits. When will the traffic lights at McVitie's get set back to they were 4 weeks ago after the congestion charge vote? Council-induced congestion. How cynical, he says. Brooklands, Oldham Road, Rochdale Road, Cheetham Hill Road, etc., all dug up and then left or narrowed. Why are you not reporting them? Says John in Stockport. Well, I think we may well have just done so. So there you are. It's a bit tricky, isn't it? I mean, I don't know why we're not just... I don't know. I've no idea. Maybe we don't know about them, or maybe they're the norm and we don't report the norm. That would be silly. But what do you say to the changes, or the changes in the well, it's a complicated sentence, but what do you say to the proposed changes in the proposals for the TIF vote? They're mixing it all up. But as I say, they're changing it somewhat. Everybody's got the story, including the FT. If the changes are approved by council chiefs from the 10 Manchester councils at a meeting on Friday, lorries will be spared the charge for its first year in operation, pending a study to investigate the savings from reduced congestion. Now, I can't work out the savings from reduced congestion. I don't understand. Where did the savings manifest? The local authority won't save anything. If you reduce congestion, then OK, companies may well get some benefit because their employees will arrive at work on time. People making deliveries will be able to get around more quickly. But I don't know how you quantify those changes, and I don't know how the local authorities would quantify them. Should the congestion charge be introduced, what will they measure it by? What will be the measure at the end of the first 12 months? I suppose the biggest change, because lots of people have asked us about this as well, people working in Trafford Park, which is described in the FT as the large business centre close to the outside of the charging zone, will not have to pay the charge until the tram network reaches the area. So if you're working in that area, you'll get off not exactly scot-free, but for a while you won't be required to pay. How they'll quantify that, that's going to be difficult as well. What will they do? Will everybody who works in the Trafford area, not the Trafford Centre incidentally, but the Trafford Park area, everybody who works there, will they be given a pass? What if they only work 1 day a week? Would it be worth all of our while to register for work in the Trafford Park area? Say, I'll come in and be, I don't know, I'll be a cleaner for an hour. Because that way I'll save £5 a day. That's 25 quid. £25 an hour is not a bad rate of pay. How will they quantify that? Will you have to be a full-time employee? Will it be a case of, if you're employed in Trafford Park, that's where your headquarters is, but you actually work, I don't know, in Wigan? Will you have to pay? It's complicated. I don't see how they can implement that. It's going to be very, very difficult indeed. The administration involved in that is going to be phenomenal. And I'll add another 10 years, one presumes, to how long the congestion charge will be required to pay back the money that's borrowed. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But no matter, we like interest. And very nice of the pro-congestion charge people to offer a discount on the buses if you can show your wage slips for the last 6 months. What about the minimum wage earning drivers? Will they get a discount? Yes, they will. The congestion charge also will be reduced. As I say, I don't quite know how somebody working for the minimum wage affords to run a motor car, but if your wage is the minimum wage, and I can see jiggery-pokery. I'm always interested. Imagine this. Your average wage, or your usual wage, is, I don't know, £10 an hour. But your employer agrees with you that for 1 hour every week, he'll pay you the minimum wage. And that way, you won't have to pay the congestion charge because you're now a minimum wage earner. It's weird. It's getting very, very complicated indeed. Whether it is also getting better as a result, well, that will be for you to decide. That's a little beyond me, to be honest. And then Kevin says, so, quite, if it's not confusing enough for some people, they're trying to change what's on offer only days before we vote on the congestion charge. Well, it's about 50 days, Kevin. It's quite a long time. And then Kevin says, I think this is a deliberate con by the Yes campaign to muddy the water. Well, what do you think? It's always this way, isn't it? You see, if you consult and people make recommendations and suggestions as the process was declared, and then you implement those recommendations, you're accused of jiggery-pokery. But what would be the point of a consultation if nothing happened at the end of it, which frankly seems to be the case so very often? I'm sorry, but I don't want to appear to be coming down in favour or against the congestion charge. I'm very definitely one of the people that will require to pay it, because I'm sure as hell won't be getting on public transport. So it's unfair, surely, to say of the organisers, right, we've had this consultation, something like 60,000, maybe 80,000 people have responded, and this is what they have suggested, so here's some of the changes. Surely that's exactly what we want, isn't it? 0161 228 2255. John in Stockport says, houses at the side of Burnage railway station bought and demolished to make way for a car park for increased rail use when the congestion charge is brought in. Why? It might be a no yet. Well, John in Stockport, you're correct. It might well be a no. If I had to put money on what the outcome would be, well, I'm afraid I'd be saying people are going to vote no, because that's the sensation I get talking to people. It's like, people vote in different ways, but there you are. So people on the minimum wage will get cheaper public transport fares and discount congestion charge fees. I wonder if they'll do the same for the unemployed. I'm glad to see the East Lancashire Railway will be opened up to commuters. Some of us have been arguing for that change for years. Simon in Haywood. Yes, they have. People have been saying, look, this railway's gone back in two. Why not have it used for commuters? So, yeah, what a fantastic idea. I like the sound of it. But if we're going to make the minimum wage, or make it so that people on the minimum wage get reduced price travel, whether they're driving or indeed whether they're travelling on public transport, what about the unemployed? What about retirement pensioners who currently get the public transport to a large extent free? Will they get help? Will they get a discount on the congestion charge? People living on benefit, will they get a discount? I've no idea. As I say, as soon as you start to introduce value judgments, then it gets very, very complicated indeed. What about single parents who are not unemployed because they're not registered for employment, because frankly they've got 4 kids at home and couldn't hold down a job at this stage? Will they get a discount? Why not? They're not exactly awash with money. What about people going on hospital visits? More importantly, what about people who go to hospital as patients? It just gets ever more complicated. And when you eventually say, well, this group is entitled to help, then you're only ever a penny different from the next group, so they're entitled to help. You're only ever a penny different from the next group, so they're entitled to help. And the next thing you know, everybody's got a discount, so in effect nobody has. It's very, very complex. But at least it'll give 25,000 local civil servants a job, one presumes. 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. Richard Stead's got the headlines.
Revised plans have been put forward for the Greater Manchester congestion charge. There'll now be a £5 maximum daily charge, and lorries will be exempt for the first 12 months. If you want to claim money because you're sick or disabled, it could be harder to get the cash from today. The government wants to stop false claims, so new claimants will now be tested to see what sorts of jobs they could do. And Bolton Council say they hope to recover at least 2/3 of the £6 million they'd invested in an Icelandic bank. £4 million was in a UK subsidiary of Landsbanki, and the administrators say their assets are equal to their liabilities. Manchester's weather, sunshine and showers, highs of 9 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
On the M56 Sharston Link, travelling eastbound between Junction 2 at Sharston and the M60. One lane remains closed off there because of the earlier accident. The congestion's back to Junction 6 at Hale. The matrix signs are set to a 40 miles per hour speed limit, so do be aware of some delays there whilst some carriageway repairs are carried out. Better news on the M60, anti-clockwise at Barton Bridge. There was an accident there, but it's all back to normal now. And in Rochdale, Milnrow Road, the A640, that's closed off in both directions because of an unsafe railway bridge that's between Molesworth Street and Fishwick Street. It's affecting traffic between Rochdale and the M62. There is a diversion for you via Fishwick Street, Oldham Road and Wood Street. If you'd like to update us, please do call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Helen Wakefield.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day.
John in Harwood says Bolton appears to benefit very little in comparison to other towns, re the congestion charge. Well, presumably they'll get the school buses, they'll get the... Well, now, people on minimum wage in Bolton, once the congestion charge comes in, will also get the benefit of reduced cost public transport. So there are some things there for the people of Bolton, like there are some things there for everybody. Whether it's enough, well, we'll find that out in December. Les in Cheadle-Hulme. Hi, Les.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
You've been talking about the people in Trafford Park. They're not being charged until the trams get there.
That's what they say, yes.
Well, Stockport's not even on the network for trams. Do we get it as well in Stockport? No congestion charge?
Well, you won't pay the congestion charge in Stockport unless you choose to come towards Manchester.
Yeah, but whereabouts is the outer ring road?
Effectively, the M60.
Ah. So if you work inside the M60, you still pay it?
Unless you're working in Trafford Park, it would seem, yes.
Yeah. So there's a big area in where McVitch is you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you come into work there, you still have to pay it, but there's no trams.
Well, no. The Trafford Park is... They've decided that Trafford Park is a special case. If they decide that everybody's going to work doesn't have to pay, then I don't think there'll be many people paying it. Somebody is going to have to pay it, because otherwise there won't be any money.
I suppose so, yeah. Okay.
It's the old story, isn't it? I mean, what will you be voting? Well, first of all, will you be voting?
I don't think so. At 88, no, I don't think so. I'm registered blind. There's not much chance.
You don't think you'll be voting?
I don't think so.
Why not? It's important, isn't it?
Well, I'll use the I'll use the buses if people will take me on the buses.
Yeah.
But no, why should I? You know, it's of no interest to me, really.
All right, good on you.
Okay.
Les, cheers, mate. Les says it's of no interest to him. 80-odd years of age and blind. Why would he bother? Well, because everybody else would be bothered. I think if somebody gives me the opportunity to vote, then I'll definitely have a go. Barry in Offerton, the replica loco at the Museum of Science and Industry is not a half-size rocket, but a full-size planet. Oh, come on. I don't think it's full-size. I may have got the... is it? I thought it was an half-size rocket. I'm going with that. What was Stephenson's first engine? Wasn't that the rocket? I think Moses' rocket is an half-sat Moses rocket. That's good, isn't it? Not that Moses, you clown. No. Not the fella in the reed bed. No, a different Moses altogether. I thought it was a half-size rocket. But there, what the hell do I know? I am corrected. And not for the first time, it would seem. You tell me. Barry says it's a full-size planet. I say it's an half-size rocket. Where are we going with this? I don't think blood will be drawn. 0161228 2255. If you've something to say today, you don't have to talk about the congestion charge, but of course that's in the news again. It's going to stay in the news for a very long time to come, isn't it? It's certainly going to be in the news through until December, and it's worth a word of caution. The changes that have been proposed, for that is all they are at the moment, the changes that have been proposed are only going to become formal changes if they are passed at a meeting of the Association of Greater Manchester Authorities, AGMA, that takes place on Friday. We have a phone call now to Alderbaston. I can't say Alderbaston Trident Base. And the reason we're talking to somebody is because she's round here. She's from Littleborough. And right now, as I understand it, she is chained to the railings. Not an uncommon experience for women from the Greater Manchester area. They did a lot of it in the suffragette days. But this is Pat Sanchez on the line. Hiya, Pat.
Hello, Alan.
How are you?
Not quite right. We're not chained to the railing.
Oh, dear.
We've been lying down with our arms in an arm lock. It's a stiff, rigid tube, and we are locked onto each other, so it makes it very difficult for the police to move us.
Right, so it's what they used to call the sit-down except you're lying down, but it's the
lying down
non-violent protestation.
And there are several campaigners all locked one to the other. So they need cutting equipment to get through.
Yes, but why...
But you know why we're doing it?
Well, I was just in the process of asking exactly that.
Well, Aldermaston is where our nuclear warheads are refurbished regularly. They come up and down English and Scottish roads and get refurbished here at Aldermaston. But even more sickening is the fact that they are now spending billions of pounds on updating all the facilities here so they can work on a replacement warhead for the Trident missile system when it's redundant in 20 years. You know, this is at a time when Alan Johnson can't find a paltry $6 billion for social care for elderly people or vulnerable people. And here they are spending 76 billion, not million, billion, on replacement nuclear warheads.
But Pat, you're not doing this, if you like, in order to get pensions increased. You're doing this because of your views, I suspect, of nuclear weapons.
But don't you think it's all together, all linked? I oppose desperately nuclear weapons. I think they are obscene, and I would... You know, it's criminal to work on them, in my view. Absolutely criminal. You know, we say, oh, it's jobs, but there were jobs available at Belsen and Auschwitz, yes? And this is the same thing. They are working on weapons of mass destruction. So you cite Belsen and Auschwitz, as you're perfectly entitled to do. There are those, you're not one of them, I concede, there are those who will make a defence case for nuclear weapons. There's nobody going to make a defence case for Belsen and Auschwitz. There are differences. The weapons... it depends whether you bring the victims to the camp or whether you take the camp to the victims. This is with nuclear weapons which can reach many, many thousands of miles, and they're... As we talk now, they are patrolling the oceans of the world.
I will come back to that, but again, you're now making the case of the pacifist, if you like. We've just seen the poppy launch once again, and millions of people in the last century lost their lives in conventional warfare. This is a weapon. You can argue against weapons, but this is just a very efficient weapon.
It's one that brings mass destruction. We can never use this, Alan, without starting a nuclear war which would annihilate the world. Really. There's no use having a poppy appeal after this, you know. There won't be anybody left to benefit. There'll be nobody left to buy the poppies or wear them. we'll all be, any survivors would be cowering in bunkers.
Well, do you think, your personal view, do you think that nuclear weapons have made any contribution at all to the comparative, and I do use that word advisedly, the comparative peace of the last half of the last century?
I don't know where you've got your impression that we've had peace for the last
hence
50 years.
the adjective comparative. It was relevant. We weren't in entire continental warfare, which we had been in two bits
for years,
of the first half.
The major powers fought out their battles, their wars, in proxy wars across the world, and we are still at war. Nuclear weapons have not kept the peace because we've been fighting ever since, one war after another. So nuclear weapons don't do what they say on the box. They do not deter, and they cost billions that we need in this country for social care, for our health care, for our education, and for finding a cure. Instead of having these best brains, there's some brilliant scientists in this place, you know. Instead of having those brains working on ever more efficient ways of killing people by the million, why don't we put those brains to good effect? Why aren't those people working on
one last question.
On cures for malaria?
One last question, and frankly, there's an element of the answer in the very fact that we're speaking to each other right now. But why are you bothering, given that there were all sorts of protests at every nuclear base ever since the Aldermaston marches of the 1950s and 60s and beyond, and yet the nuclear weapons are still there? Greenham Common, the nuclear weapons were there until the Americans didn't want them there anymore.
No,
it's had nothing to do with your protests.
Alan, why didn't they want them there? Because the Greenham women showed that they weren't fit for purpose. The Greenham women showed that instead of melting unseen into the countryside as they were supposed to, the Greenham women alerted people up and down the country every time nuclear weapons were taken out, those nuclear missile launchers were taken out on patrol. So they could not secretly go off to Salisbury Plain or some wood somewhere and hide from where they would be able to launch the missiles.
What's your plan? What's your plan for the rest of the day then, Pat?
Right, well, not just for the rest of the day, for the rest of my life, until nuclear weapons are gone.
Indeed,
carry on campaigning.
I fully understand that.
Yeah?
You've been doing it a good while now. This isn't a new venture for you. But what's the plan for the rest of the day? There you are, all locked together. Do you intend to stay there all day, or have you got a close down time?
No, I think physical capacity will mean we'll have to get up soon, and then we shall leave.
Have a safe day, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking.
We've not been arrested so far, so let's hope.
Well, do ring us the moment you are.
Well, no, I think they've got so many people in the custody suite that they're hanging on.
Oh, well, there you are. It's an ill wind, isn't it? It's an ill wind. Pat, have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Pat Sanchez, 68 years of age. She won't mind me telling you, she's not that much older than me. 68 years of age. She's from Littleborough, currently protesting outside the Aldermaston base. And they're against, as you know, the future development of the site. And she sounds like she's having fun as well. 0161 228 2255. And no, I'm not attempting to diminish what she's doing, or indeed expand what she's doing. What do you think? I mean, nuclear weapons, are they're finished now? You heard me say that there are those that would argue that they've made some kind of contribution to the comparative, Pat rejects the adjective comparative, but the comparative peace of the last 50 or 60 years. What do you think? Do you think nuclear weapons are a necessary evil? No one wants weapons, of course they don't. Do you think they're a necessary evil? Do you think they are an unnecessary evil and a complete and utter waste of money, as Pat seems to say, and many others in her groups, of course? I say groups because she's probably a member of more than one. 0161 228 2255. If you want to join us, then feel free. All you have to do is pick up your phone. John in Moston, or chain yourself to the railings. John, what can we do for you?
Hi, Alan. Good afternoon there.
Good afternoon, sir.
It's just about the congestion charge, Alan.
Go on.
I think what it is, Alan, there, a lot of people, when they vote in December for the proposed congestion charge there, everybody seems to think, it's been bandied about, that it's going to start at £5 a day. Now, when GMPTE was... I'm going back to a story, Alan, there, in March there. When it was asked, transport bosses confirmed that the £5 a day, Alan, was only at 2007 prices. When it was asked further, the GMPTE, they refused to supply the information saying it was not in the public interest because they reckon, like, it's 2013, that it could be much higher. And I think this is what, a lot of people in December are thinking, well, it's £5, but it's not going to come in until 2013. I mean, you've only got to look at London now and there, and their congestion charge is more or less doubled in the years it's been out. And
I mean, everything goes up in price, John, and it would be impossible to defend them. It would be impossible for the local authorities to tell us today what it will cost to operate, indeed what it will cost to by way of the charge in 2013. Surely it's perfectly reasonable for them to say it will be the then equivalent of today's £5.
Yeah, but I mean, what it is, rail and bus fares, they've been going up faster than the rate of inflation at present day, Alan.
Indeed.
I mean, you've only got to see what Ken Livingstone done. He just does what he wants and has done. I mean, even at the time there, Alan, you had I mean, I know nobody can see into the future, but I think when people are voting there in December, 2013 is a long way off, Alan, there, and a lot of people are voting on the fact that they're thinking it's £5.
Well, but do you think that? I mean, you just said that, so clearly you do, but surely people are not stupid. People won't be voting thinking, well, a £5 in 2013, it won't buy a loaf of bread, so it'll be almost nothing. People will be thinking, well, they're talking about a £5 now, but it's the equivalent of a £5 when the charge comes in, surely.
Well, the Manchester Evening News sister paper, they actually asked GMPTE, and to get an answer like that saying it's not in the public interest, they won't supply the information saying it's not in the public interest. So we don't know the full facts and figures, Alan, there. How can we have, an informed, vote?
All right, good on you. I don't know, will you? I suspect you'll be voting, John. What will you vote?
Well, I've got, some tells me I'm for it, and some tells me I'm really against it, Alan. But we want more clarification on, how it is, Alan, there, Mm-hmm. You mentioned the words, Alan, there, and I quote you there, you said jiggery pokery. And I just want to make sure that people know it's not going to be £5.
Well,
it's definitely not going to be £5, Alan.
You can't say definitely because you haven't got the definitive answer from the authorities. I think the right
because
thing...
Because supply it under the information.
Well, it really does. It doesn't matter what the reason is that you haven't got the answer. You haven't, yeah. So you can't say definitely, but you can say you have a very, very strong suspicion, and I suspect not many will disagree with you.
It's nice to speak to you, Alan. Have a nice day.
Have a good day, John. 0161 228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. Colin in Bolton. Hi, Alan. With reference to the dictionary definition of the words step-parent, which you recited last Friday, the definition refers to the real parents being divorced or one of them being widowed. However, it is possible for a step-parent to exist without there being a divorce or a parent being widowed. If the original parents were never married to each other and their relationship was to break down so they became separated, then one or both parents might marry another partner who would then become the step-parent. Well, yes, I think modern life has left the dictionary behind to a certain extent, but you're absolutely correct, I suppose. I don't suppose, I know. Sheila says, Alan, I'm starting to think I'm the only one who'll be paying the congestion charge. I'm a single female and working. I get no benefits and have no kids. Sheila, you won't be the only one. I'll be paying it as well. But it looks like it's me and you carrying the rest of the Greater Manchester conurbation on our backs, love. So it looks that way all around, doesn't it? And I bet you're going to get a job in Trafford Park now and then leave it all to me. Alan, Bolton appears to benefit very little. I've read that once, but it's nonetheless important for reading it again, from John in Harwood. Lauren in Hyde, I was going to talk to you immediately, but that would be unfair on you because there's only about 30-odd seconds now before the news headlines. So with your permission, I'll talk to you the other side of those headlines. And indeed to you on 0161 228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And you can text us, of course, on 07786 206 951. A couple of thoughts from the newspapers this morning, or stories. Respect for elders has vanished, says one survey published in the Daily Mail. Well, we're not entirely surprised by that. Not enjoying the fact, but nonetheless not surprised. Sex education in schools is useless. absolutely useless. It does no good whatsoever, according to a report in the Daily Express. And something with... I respect my elders now, sod off Beswick. Thank you for that. You've been a great help. And cops and fingerprints in the street. If you get stopped in the street henceforth, all the coppers are going to have a little... I think it's actually a BlackBerry, but you're going to have one of those little BlackBerry telephonic devices, and you have to touch it with your finger, and they can check whether your fingerprints are on file. The police and the Home Office are promising us emphatically that the fingerprints thus taken will not be stored. And I, for one, am on the edge of believing them. It's 20 to 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Richard Stead.
Revised plans have been put forward for the Greater Manchester congestion charge. There'll now be a £5 maximum daily charge, discounts for low-paid workers, and lorries will be exempt for the first 12 months. European stock markets are once again falling amid economic pessimism. Share indexes in London, Frankfurt and Paris are all down. And a gunman's opened fire at a university in the American state of Arkansas, killing 2 students and injuring a third. Police said they were questioning one person and that the campus was now believed to be safe. Manchester's weather, sunshine and showers, highs of 9 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Better news now on the M56 Sharston Link, heading eastbound between Tewett Sharston and the M60. All the lanes reopen there. Traffic back to normal. Same goes on the M60 as well. Anti-clockwise at Barton Bridge. Traffic getting back to normal there following the earlier accident. In Rochdale, we do have some problems on Milnrow Road. It's closed off the A640 there in both directions because of an unsafe railway bridge. That's between Molesworth Street and Fishwick Street, so it's affecting traffic between Rochdale and the M62. And the M6 southbound, that's heavy from Lymm through to junction 18 at Middlewich. So do be aware of some delays if you're heading that way. If you'd like to update us, please do call in on 01612 244 4951. I'm Helen Wakefield.
BBC Radio Manchester, Sports with Dennis Lloyd.
Good afternoon. Oldham Athletics players were made to spend their day off yesterday on the training field. Boss John Sheridan called his squad in for extra practice after describing Saturday's defeat at Swindon as their worst performance of the season. Sheridan has also warned his players that no one is guaranteed a starting place ahead of tomorrow's game against Scunthorpe at Boundary Park.
People think they've got a comfort zone, they're going to be picked every week. They're not going to be from now on. I'll make changes. I've got young players and players who aren't playing, and if I have to, I'll throw them in. Because some people think they've got a right to be in a team, and I'll make changes. I'm not having it, because I think we've got an opportunity to get out of this division, but not on that performance. We'll get relegated if we played like we did.
Manchester City boss Mark Hughes is facing a trio of fitness doubts ahead of Wednesday's trip to Middlesbrough. Brazilian striker Joe missed yesterday's win over Stoke with tonsillitis, while captain Richard Dunn and youngster Ched Evans were forced out of the action with chest and knee injuries. Hat-trick hero Robinho, meanwhile, has targeted 30 goals this season. He scored a hat-trick in yesterday's 3-0 win over Stoke, taking his tally to 6 for the season. Bolton will be without the suspended Gavin McCann for Wednesday's game against Everton. Mustafa Riga and Ricardo Gardner will both come into contention. Manchester United assistant manager Mike Phelan has singled out Ryan Giggs and Darren Fletcher for praise this season. Giggs is playing more of a central role for the Reds, while Fletcher took his goal tally to 3 at the weekend to equal his highest score in a season.
Ryan's done particularly well in midfield. You know, he keeps reinventing himself every season. We felt as though he could do a job in there in midfield. And Darren Fletcher's been doing well. Go back to last season, he was disappointed he didn't play enough games. The managers obviously had a talk with him, talked him into signing a new contract and gave him the games. So I think we've got the response that we wanted from him.
Harry Redknapp has made his first appointment to his backroom staff since taking over as Tottenham manager. Redknapp's former assistant at Portsmouth and Southampton, Kevin Bond, has joined him at White Hart Lane. Portsmouth, meanwhile, say there's no truth to suggestions that the former Bolton boss Sam Allardyce has been lined up to replace Redknapp at Fratton Park. Current Pompey assistant boss Tony Adams will talk to the club today. Curzon Ashton are just one game away from making the FA Cup first round proper for the first time in their history. They face a replay tonight against Hinkley Town after getting a draw on Saturday. If they make it through, they'll play Exeter at home. Curzon boss Gary Lowe told BBC Radio Manchester he's expecting a hard match.
We don't think for one second that, because we've earned a draw down there, that this is a gimme. It'll be very tough. They're a good side. Obviously, they're feel like they could have won it Saturday. So there's unfinished business for them. It'll be a tough game, but we feel we didn't really play well Saturday, although we hung in, and we think maybe a few more lads believe now that we can turn them over, and hopefully tonight we can do it.
At the Rugby League World Cup, Lee Smith, who scored a hat-trick of tries for England on his debut against Papua New Guinea, is doubtful for this Sunday's game against Australia in Melbourne. The Leeds winger has a foot injury. And no luck for Ireland this morning. They were beaten by 22 points to 20 by Tonga in their opening game of the tournament. Ireland, though, had led with just 7 minutes to go in Sydney.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
It comes tomorrow night, courtesy of all our local Football League sides who are in action. Tune into the all-new Manchester Sports from 7 o'clock.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. Talking about step relations, says David, I wonder how Prince Harry's getting along riding his bike round Africa. I'll leave that hanging in the air in the hope that you deduce what he's trying to say, and thus I don't have to say it. And then David says, I'm not a great supporter of nuclear weapons, but I believe that they have prevented wars. Just look at India and Pakistan. Prior to both of them acquiring nuclear weapons, there were regular cross-border confrontations, but the prospect of mutual destruction seems to be holding the peace. What do you think? Nuclear weapons, have they made a contribution to peace, or are they just another excuse for violence? Lauren in Hyde, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. What can we do for you?
Hi, Alan. I heard you talking about Planet earlier. I volunteer on her myself as a fireman, and I just thought I'd put you straight.
I've just looked it up on the internet and hate myself because I was utterly wrong. Well, I hold out my hand pathetically and say, is it a half-size replica?
No, it's
Oh, no! Oh, there you are. Beaten twice in one day. It's cruel and wicked. You are a harsh woman indeed. How did you come to be volunteering there?
Well, I've got a strong interest in museums and I enjoy volunteer work. So they wanted volunteers 2 years ago and I ticked the box saying join the railway.
Fabulous.
And I got a phone call out of the blue one day saying, do you want to volunteer? And I said yes.
And what do you do on it? What's your role?
I'm a fireman.
You actually chuck the coal in?
Yes, I took the coal in and make sure the pressure's safe.
In words of none too sexist a nature, you must have shoulders like a bloke.
Thank you, Alan.
It's hard graft.
Strong arms.
I mean, when I was a squadder, a long time ago, I went out with a girl who was a rower. She was like an outside toilet. She smelled delightful, but she had shoulders on her, honestly, because she was a rower. Well, yeah, no disrespect, but you must be pretty strong.
Well, if you want to see me working, Alan, I'm volunteering tomorrow and on Wednesday.
Are you really? Well, there you are. It's the best offer I've had today, Lauren. Well, good. How often does it go out? Because a little while ago it wasn't going out at all, was it? Because there weren't people like you.
Well, it's all to do with how many volunteers we've got, and we've actually got a fresh wave just come in, and we're running all this week because it's half term, and we're always glad to have volunteers come to the museum and offering to work on the railway.
And how long does it take to train? Because you can't just, arrive.
Oh, it takes a long time, and I started cleaning and working my way up, and I'm being trained to be a driver at the minute, so...
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, good on you. Thank you for correcting me. I meant that.
That's okay.
I mean that emphatically. I really do. Thank you for correcting Good on you, Lauren. Keep up the good work.
Okay, bye.
Isn't that splendid? So there, whoever that smart aleck was earlier, you were dead right on both counts. I hate you and everything you stand for. But Lauren actually works on it. If you fancy getting involved, there are all sorts of ways of getting involved with all the museums. All the museums are looking for volunteers, and it's very, very interesting work. I'm sure there are boring bits as well, but it's very interesting work. And I know Mosey, well, we just heard Mosey does. I think all the other museums and galleries do as well. A pal of mine at the moment is learning to be a Blue Badge guide in Manchester. There's a course going on at the moment, because it's not just a case of saying, oh, I could do that, I know my way around town, I'll do it. No, you have to go through a training course and everything. Fantastic. 0161 228 2255. So it's the planet, not the rocket. I'll try and remember that. Liz in Salford. What are you laughing at? It's laugh at Beswick Day today, is it, Liz?
Well, I tell you what.
Go on.
I know you don't watch it, but BBC Come Dancing. It was a real fiasco on Saturday.
I do watch it.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's
Oh, well,
great.
you'd seen him marching, wouldn't you, instead of dancing?
Dragging that woman along. You look like a caveman,
Well, he
didn't
looked as though he was carrying a sack of spuds.
I know.
I thought it was disgusting.
Disgusting?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, you can't call that dancing.
The lad's doing his best.
I don't know about lad. It's time he retired.
He's probably younger than me, Gustedy.
Well, I tell you what, Alan, I've got two of my granddaughters, which I've got a lot of grandkids, as you're well aware of. And two of them, they dance in the area finals at Blackpool.
Oh, do they? What, in ballroom?
In Winter Gardens
Yeah,
ballroom.
in ballroom
yeah.
dancing.
Well,
Fabulous.
last Saturday, my one of 8 years of age, she did the cha-cha, the samba, the paso doble, and the square tango. She came second out of 90.
Wow.
Yes, she got a lovely big cup.
Yeah.
And you want to see her do the paso doble, she'd put John Sargent to shame.
Well, I don't want to stick my neck out too far, but I think I could put John Sargent to shame.
Oh, I know. When he was marching, it took me back to me bloody army days. Left, right.
It wasn't pretty, was it? Not by any stretch.
And I think the wrong one got voted off.
Do you?
I think John Sargent should have been voted off, not this week, but last week as well.
But you see, the problem there is that the
viewers phone in, don't they?
They've changed it, and it's not just about the dancing, because in the end, I mean, I know it's called Strictly Come Dancing, but in the end, it's just a piece of light entertainment, isn't it?
Well, it is, but the point is, them that are voting for him don't know what the left foot from the right foot be, half of them. Honestly, I was just disgusted when I saw it last night, that he was still in. And even the judges said he reminded them of the marching days.
He did?
And yet, they voted him in.
Well, that's the way.
Anyway, before I go, Alan.
Go on.
I got a newsletter through my door this morning. And will you inform your listeners to be aware of that people are getting phone calls from saying it's from BT, telling them to turn the phone off.
All right.
But don't.
Don't.
It's a scam.
All right, well, we've got it.
And also people receiving messages from the post office saying they've got a parcel.
Yeah, it's not the post office doing that.
It's not, no, it's not.
And they leave you a number, and when you ring, it's costing
15,
you quid a minute.
15 quid a time.
Yeah. Well, good warnings, Liz. Good on you.
All right, God bless,
Cheers, love.
Alan.
Have a good day. Bye-bye now, they. Strictly Come Dancing. It's a disgrace, she said. It was a shame and a disgrace. Frankly, I thought that swimmer was rubbish anyway, to be honest. I did. But that's just me, you know, entitled to their own vote. But everybody seems to agree with me. But John Sargent, he's a good addition to the cast, isn't he? He's a very welcome addition to the cast. I know, absolutely extraordinary. What am I doing watching Strictly Come Dancing? It's just a piece of entertainment, and damn good it is too. James in Heald Green. Hi, Alan. Here is a quote for the lady at Aldermaston and the non-poppy wearers that might be quite apt. People can sleep safely in their beds because rough men are ready to kill and do violence on their behalf. George Orwell, 1940. Well, James, that would be a good quote to offer to those who are pacifist, not for any moment saying they are wrong by so being, but that would be a good quote for those that are pacifist. But frankly, the idea that George Orwell was commenting on nuclear weapons when he made that statement in 1940 is inaccurate. What he was saying was warfare. The people who have gone out and fought and died and killed on our behalf and other nations' behalf are the people that have made the world, in George Orwell's then view, a much safer place. But he wasn't commenting on nuclear weapons, because it's not rough men that do that. It's scientists and button pressures. But there you are. But yes, it would be a good argument against pacifism if such an argument was being made. Ken in Whitefield says, if nuclear weapons are a deterrent, why won't we allow all countries to have them and have peace everywhere? Questions often asked. Of course, guns are argued in the United States to be a defence against violence. And in many respects, they are. Everybody carrying a gun in the United States means that if you break into somebody's home, instead of getting shouted at quietly by a judge in 4 years' time, who asks you to go and wash an old lady's car for your punishment, you get shot through the face. So you don't burgle. Or if you do, you take a gun. The problem with that mutually assured destruction concept, of course, is if you let everybody have them, you let the idiots have them as well, and you get stories like we're getting this morning, where yet another shooting has taken place at a school in the United States. So, if you allow everybody to have weapons, that means you let the nutters have them as well, and when the nutters get them, it's a scary prospect. And there are nations on our planet which, frankly, are led by nutters. You could argue we live in one. There again, you might not. Alan, in Burnage, what have you got?
Oh, hello, Alan.
Hello.
You're quite surprised there. Right, what it is you're ex-army.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What would you say is the highest rank that somebody coming in as like a private could ever attain in the army? I'm not asking for it, I'm just asking for rough.
Well, the question of could ever achieved has to include field marshal.
You think somebody could aspire as high as a field marshal?
Well, could. I'm not aware that anybody ever has done.
No,
they
this
could.
is what I was thinking as well. You see, I met somebody on Saturday night who told me that he joined up in the 1950s. Well, I mean, to be honest, let's just say my father was in the army for 14 years, and he used to tell me a hell of a lot about the army as a child. And I wouldn't have thought that anybody could rise from, say, for instance, a private, to a colonel in such a short space of time.
Well, they could reach colonel. One of the things you have to be wary of with a question like the one you put is that everybody who joins the army starts at the bottom. I mean, it may have changed, but I doubt it. When I was training, in our basic training, there was one lad on our basic training course who was officer material. He'd been designated as officer material, but he still had to do his basic training course. Now, in those days, they used to have Sandhurst and Mons, and the general breakdown was that Sandhurst was the ex-public school boys, the clever boys, if you like, the posh boys, and Mons was where ordinary working blokes, if you like, were trained to be officers. So,
a bit like getting a special scholarship, wasn't it?
And to a certain extent, I suspect it goes on, but not in the same way. But yes, any serving soldier, and particularly, you mentioned your pal in the 50s, well, he says he volunteered. If you were called up in the 50s, your chances of becoming a brigadier were pretty slim.
Yeah, because
you're only in there 2 years.
My father joined up in 1950.
But did he join up, or was he called up?
Oh, no, he joined. He joined up... He'd actually been, the ridiculous thing is, he'd actually been called up in 1942. He went in the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
And my grandfather had been, what you would class them days as a professional soldier. And whether or not he went in to please him or he just didn't like civilian life. Well, put it this way, he never came out till 1964.
So once he got in there, he kind of liked it.
It was either that, I was born in 56, he didn't like me or my mum, I don't know.
I think it was you, Alan.
I mean, unfortunately, he's not alive now to confirm that.
All right, well, good on you, mate. It's a good question, thank you.
Anyway.
I don't know the answer to his question, maybe you do. There are lots of ex-squaddies. We can swing the light a little bit after the 1 o'clock news, but what is the highest rank ever attained in the modern British Army for somebody that started as a plug squaddie? So that would be a private, a trooper, a signalman, whatever. But the lowest rank. What is the highest rank attained by somebody who joined up at the lowest rank and worked his way up? It takes you a long time to get to W01, Sergeant Major Class 1. And then the step up takes quite a long time too. Usually to lieutenant. You don't become a second lieutenant if you go up through the ranks. You just jump that bit and go straight to lieutenant, which is general dog's body but in a nice suit. But there you are. Does anybody know? I don't, and quite frankly don't know how to find out other than ask you. But what is the highest rank achieved by a ranker, as it were, by a ranker, steady, although others call them that as well, by somebody who joined up at the basic level and then worked his or her way through? What's the highest rank? I don't know. I'd love to know now. I'm intrigued.
Oldham, Stockport, Bury, Rochdale and Macclesfield all in action tomorrow. We've got it all covered from 7.
If you know the answer to that, or you've any question, or anything you want to say, that's all fantastic. 0161228 2255, 07786 206 951, and then there's the email.
95.1 FM,
DAB Digital Radio,
and the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, the Chamber of Commerce criticised the complexity of the revised plans for the Greater Manchester Congestion Charge, and the government are being criticised for borrowing too much money and leaving the country in too much debt.
Sheridan gets his players in for extra training.
Well, this afternoon we'll see some sunny intervals and possibly a scattered shower or two. Top temperatures 10 Celsius.
In Rochdale today, Milnrow Road remains closed off because of an unsafe railway bridge. That's between Molesworth Street and Fishwick Street.
Good afternoon, I'm Richard Stead. The Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce are criticising the complexity of the revised plans for the congestion charge. There'll now be a £5 maximum daily charge, and lorries will be exempt for the first 12 months. In addition, there are boundary changes, discounts for low-paid workers and exemptions for private hire taxi drivers. Richard Quitchley from the local Chamber of Commerce says it's still unclear how businesses will be affected.
Until we see the details how this will work in terms of the technology and logistics of it, it could potentially be a bureaucratic nightmare. As you say, there are so many caveats, so many exemptions. For a business who has, employs 100 staff and more, this could become a right nightmare, particularly trying to recoup those costs.
European stock markets have fallen again, copying plungers in the Far East overnight. In London, the 100 share index has fallen to levels not seen since the Gulf War of 2003. The pound and the euro have also fallen in value against the dollar. The government have been criticised for borrowing too much money. Gordon Brown says it's the wrong time to reduce investment. But the Conservative Treasury spokesman Philip Hammond says we need to be careful that we don't go into too much debt.
Our problem is that we go into this downturn with very high levels of borrowing, in fact the highest public sector deficit of any developed country. Gordon Brown has borrowed right the way through a boom, and that means we've got much less room for manoeuvre now than many of our competitors.
Bolton Council say they hope to recover at least two-thirds of the £6 million they'd invested in an Icelandic bank. £4 million was in a UK subsidiary of Landsbanki, and the administrators say their assets are equal to their liabilities. Bolton Council say the loss of the cash won't impact on frontline services. If you want to claim money because you're sick or disabled, it could be harder to get the cash from today. The government wants to stop false claims, so new claimants will now be tested to see what sort of jobs they can do. David Congdon from Mencap says some may end up worse off.
The sad fact is that most people with a learning disability, 9 out of 10, don't get a chance to work. So if the system was to penalise them for not working when they've tried to work, we would be very cross indeed. So we want them to be given every opportunity to get a work job and the support necessary to do so.
And in the US, detectives are continuing their search for Jennifer Hudson's missing nephew. The Oscar-winning actress is offering a $100,000 reward for the return of 7-year-old Julian King. He hasn't been seen since the actress's mother and brother were found murdered in Chicago on Friday.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Dennis Lloyd.
Good afternoon. We start with some news just in. Cristiano Ronaldo has been named FIFA's World Footballer of the Year. It is the first in what is expected to be many individual honours for the 23-year-old who scored 42 goals for Manchester United last season. Oldham Athletics players were made to spend their day off yesterday on the training field. Boss John Sheridan called his squad in for extra practice after describing Saturday's defeat at Swindon as their worst performance of the season. Bolton will be without the suspended Gavin McCann for Wednesday's game against Everton. Mustafa Riga and Ricardo Gardner will both come into contention. Harry Redknapp has made his first coaching appointment at Spurs by bringing in his former Portsmouth and Southampton assistant Kevin Bond. And Andy Murray admits to feeling tired after retaining his St. Petersburg tennis title. He's looking to win his third straight Masters title when the Paris Masters gets underway this week.
BBC Radio Manchester Satellite Weather with Heather Stott.
This afternoon we will see 1 or 2 sunny spells, but we're also going to see the odd scattered shower. Now, some of those showers could be heavy, although 1 or 2 places you may be lucky and it may stay dry all afternoon. We've got a locally fresh west to northwesterly wind and it feels cool, with temperatures getting to just 10 Celsius.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Hello. How are we doing? You all right? Good-o. I don't know why this makes me laugh, but Peter Mandelson's in Moscow today. Presumably he's fed up of meeting oligarchs on yachts and thought he would guard them in their lair. So he's he's just arrived at the British Embassy in Moscow. Good luck to the lads, say I. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. Text number, of course, 07786 206 951. Mark in Wigan. Hiya, Mark.
Hi, Alan.
What you got?
Yeah, reference about what ranks you can go to in the army.
Yes.
What happens is, there's a 2-tier system of events. I only got out 4 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a 2-tier system of entry in the army. You join at the bottom as a private, or you join as a officer cadet at Sandhurst. Officer cadet at Sandhurst, his aspirations are all the way to Field Marshal. If you join as a private soldier, at the end of your time, when you're a warrant officer, or indeed in some calls a colour sergeant, you can then apply for a limited engagement commission, which are on a 5-year contract, and then you go to lieutenant, like you said, and you do the admin jobs such as motor transport officer, welfare officer, and then the quartermasters. When you get a regular commission, then you can go on through the quartermaster chain and reach the rank of colonel.
So you can make it to colonel in the normal rub of things.
In the normal rub of things.
Now, what about, because this used to happen in my day, lads would join, but then they'd be spotted as being quite clever. Needless to say, it didn't happen to me, and I suspect from what you've said thus far, you avoided it too, Mark. But lads were spotted as being a bit clever and what they used to describe as officer material, and they were sort of diverted off the basic training course toward the end and shot off to Mons.
Yeah, and the same happens now.
Right.
A lad that joined up with me, in fact, we were lance sergeants together. He went off to Sandhurst. And then he's an officer cadet then, he starts again. And off he went then, and he ended up a captain in the Royal Signals. You know, you're obviously not going to go in your own lot as an officer.
Well, no, that would be hideous. But so what you're saying really is that even now, though it is unusual, and you do have to start your basic training as an officer rather than a basic training as a plug squaddy, but you can still make it, because your friend could now go on to be Field Marshal or head of the armed forces.
Well, he's gone now. He's got out. He got somewhat disillusioned after he did it.
Fairly easy done. Disillusionment is what the British Army runs on, Mark. You know that only too well.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, just for the record, though, just for the reality of, to answer Alan's question, it is still the case that one could progress from basic training squaddy to Field Marshal.
Well, certainly, you could.
Yeah.
Whether it happened or not, it's another matter. But, you could. But the Army does give everybody, let's face it, you all start at the bottom, don't you, work your way up in some respects. And you all get a first crack at the whip.
You start at the bottom, you become a Lance Corporal and realise you weren't at the bottom.
We're right at the bottom then.
Yeah, quite so.
But I know, for example, last week a fella died. A fella, ex-member of my regiment, died. And he was still serving in the 80s as a colonel. And he joined up in 1952 with my Uncle Danny.
Wow.
And he was from Haydock.
Yeah.
Colonel Cowop. Cowop from Haydock.
Of course, in the war, people progressed a lot faster because the blokes above them got killed.
Well, I always had field promotion, didn't you?
Yeah. All right,
more so in the First World War, indeed.
Indeed, an awful lot more so, an awful lot more. Good on you, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. So the answer to Alan's question, thank you, Mark. The answer to Alan's question is from Mark, generally, if you work your way through the ranks, in other words, you work right the way through, you know, Lance Corporal, Corporal, Sergeant, Colour Sergeant, all that lot, you work you right the way through, then you might eventually progress so far that you can apply for the Queen's Commission, which is what it's called when you become an officer, and you get the Queen's Commission, you leap a rank, you don't do second lieutenant, you become a lieutenant, and you could then progress in a different mob. You could then progress to be a colonel, possibly is as high as you might go. But it is still possible that you will be spotted quite early on, pulled out of the ranks and sent off to Sandhurst. Mons is no more, but sent off to Sandhurst to start your officer cadet training, where you begin at the bottom, but the bottom of a different rank. And in that case, you could go as high. So technically, and only technically we suspect, but technically, Alan, you could go from basic recruit for an infantry regiment and end up the commander of all British forces. So there you are. Andy in Moston, hiya.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm all right, mate.
Oh, good. I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I may.
You may.
Yeah, first was the one earlier on when you were talking about the congestion charge.
Okay.
And you made a comment about the minimum wage, and I think your words were, how anybody on the minimum wage can own a car is beyond...
Can afford to run a car, yes.
Is beyond you.
Yeah.
I just want to say, a few years ago, I was a cleaner.
Yeah.
And I used to be on the minimum wage at that time was £4 an hour.
Right.
I ran a car.
How?
Because I used to do an average of 60 to 70 hours a week.
Holy hell. I suppose, yes, if you work every hour that the gods send to us, then yes, I suppose you can make a wage that you can very nearly live on.
Well, it is, and I know a lot of people who do that, because obviously it is a low rate, and they want good things to have, and that's the only way they can do it, so they work long hours. I know some people do 2 or 3 jobs, just so they can have a decent wage.
Good God.
So it can be done.
It can be done, but it doesn't sound pleasant, but thank you
it's
for
not,
that, yeah?
But I'm glad I'm not on the minimum wage now, though.
I bet you are.
But on the other one, you were talking about the ranks in the Army.
Yeah.
I spent 15 years in the Army, and the highest rank I have seen someone get to is Lieutenant Colonel, having worked his way up from private.
Yeah, no, that's the one we mostly hear of, isn't it?
Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel, full Colonel, the like. That's about the end of it, which is more or less what Mark was saying. Did anyone, when you were training, Andy, did anybody get, as it were, spotted and dragged off to officer cadet? That's the other thing, isn't it? Because they start out as a trainee private, don't they?
Well, that's right, yes. We had one guy in our squad, on the training squad, and you could tell just by speaking to him that he was very intelligent.
Yeah.
And he finished the basic training, but then didn't go progress on to the further training. He then went on to the officer selection.
Yeah.
And he went through the ranks on that way.
Yeah, so he didn't work up. It's that working up because getting your first, second, third, fourth, and fifth promotions takes such a long time.
Well, it does, yes.
You're using up your life, and they're not going to start making you or sending you on the journey to high office when you're already beyond military retirement age, are they? So that's where the holdbacks are. Yeah.
Well, that's right, you see, because I mean, normally, obviously, you're only allowed to do so many years as a serving soldier. Once you've got to the rank of warrant officer, second class or first class, or even some lower class, and they decide to put you on the long service list, then you've got more chance of actually getting further promotion.
Indeed, you often wonder, don't you? Soldiers are made to retire at the age of 40, and yet you often see brigadiers who are 60. And wonder, well, how does that happen? They're still soldiers. Well, it's this long service list, isn't it, that you referred to?
It's a long service list, but it's also obviously the 2 different kind of people, aren't they? Soldiers and the officers.
Yes, but they have different jobs to do as well.
Of course they do.
Responsibilities, and frankly, the ability of a soldier to run all over the place carrying 86 pounds or whatever the hell is very important. It's not quite the same importance for a brigadier.
No.
Because he's got a bloke alongside him who'll carry that.
Of course he has.
Good on you, Andy.
I would as well, but thanks for the time.
I would as well if I had a choice, yes. Have a good day, mate.
And you. Thank you.
Andy, another former squaddy badge. We're swinging the light, as I said. Dave in Bury, with regard to working your way up in the rank, I think you'll find that both Mandy and 2 Jegs did very well. I know that they were not in the army, but hey, it's the same thing. All right, well, I'll accept that. And our teacher was going to show the class how to put a condom on. It was so absolutely embarrassing, he said. And I'm not doing the last bit, Vinny, but never mind, it was still funny, mate. Thank you very much indeed. And hi, Alan. If volunteer workers at the museum is so rewarding and interesting, then why don't you do it? After all, you've got 22 hours out of every 24 free. Well, indeed, when I say it's rewarding and interesting, it's only rewarding and interesting for those who want that kind of thing. What voluntary work I do in a different field. Barry in Offerton. Stevenson's first loco was locomotion. A replica resides in the Beamish Museum. So there. And take it from me, the Mosey loco is a planet. That's Barry in Offerton. Thank you very much indeed. We now know that. We've had it confirmed by somebody who chucks the coal on. Hard luck, says David in Crumpsall. I've got disappointing news for you. The East Lancashire Railway operates diesels as well. There is nearly as many obsolete diesels as they have steam trains. Ah, but it is the romance I was seeking, David. The romance. You know me, an old romantic. Absolutely so. What I would want to see is the steam trains hurtling back and to Manchester, not some god-awful diesel. Chris in Rochdale. Hiya, Chris.
Hi there. Now, you were asking about the highest rank that you actually knew somebody had attained in the Army. I was a long-serving man in the Army myself, did about 30 years. I must have liked it. But a colleague of mine who started off as an apprentice at the Harrogate Apprentice School in the 1960s.
Oh, yes.
Eventually became the Master of the Royal Signal, so he actually became a Major General.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
Not bad. But did he do the ranks or did he do the sidestep?
No, he actually started off and was a corporal technician. And then he had the education qualifications and the ability, so they actually sent him to Sandhurst because he was still young enough.
That's what they used to do,
Yeah, and he went off to Sandhurst and then worked his way right the way through all the ranks and eventually became a Major General and finished up at as the head of the Royal Signals.
Yeah. Now, here's a question for you then.
Yep.
And I hope you know the answer because it's from your Army and Nations.
Yeah.
Why is a Major General a lower rank than a Lieutenant General when a Lieutenant is a lower rank than a Major?
Because originally it used to be called Sergeant Major General.
That's all right then. You pass your Army and Nations, it's all right. Excellent. But there we are. So that's a lad who starts out on the bottom rung, indeed lower than the bottom rung if he was at the Apprentice in Harrogate.
That's right.
And went on to lead the Royal Signals.
Yeah, and in fact, during my time in the Army, I know lots of an awful lot of lieutenant colonels who, finished up as lieutenant colonel, and I didn't do too bad. I finished up as a major myself.
Well, there you are, you see. There you are. The crown on the shoulder is all.
Okay.
You were, of course, in a technical force, which a technical branch of the force, which makes it a lot, I won't say easier by any means, but a greater opportunity to so do. It's harder for the infantryman and the trooper, isn't it?
Well, it's not really. An awful lot of infantry officers are ex-rankers.
Are they?
They are indeed. There's a tremendous encouragement in the Army these days to promote people who have talent and ability. So you get an awful lot of people who are not quartermaster commissions, but combatant commissions in infantry regiments who have been soldiers.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you very much indeed. I'm glad to see that the Army is still as egalitarian as it was ever. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Alan, my commanding officer in Germany in the 1970s was a lieutenant colonel who had joined as a gunner in the late 50s. That's Fred from ADOC, and he adds the PS that I think he went on to make full colonel, but I can't confirm that. And Steve from Manchester, the question for you, if you work for a company that has a policy saying you can't work for another company whilst in employment with them, if you do get a part-time job with somebody else, i.e. you keep stum, or is there any way they can find out? I wish to get a second job to increase my income. Well, it does depend on, you see, it depends on what you end up doing. The company, if the company has, let us say the BBC said to me, I can't go and work for commercial, if I was an employee, I can't go and work for a commercial station, then that's perfectly fair. But the BBC couldn't, as I understand it, stop me getting a job if I was an employee. Couldn't stop me getting a job in a bar because they're not a competitor. And I think such a contract term is unjust. Whether it's enforceable is an interesting point. But obviously no one would be entitled to do is to go and get a job with a competitor, because that would just be crazy, or somebody else in the business. So you'll have to look to your contract, but it's not about company policy, it's about your contract. If you are contracted to work for them and forsake all other work, then one would hope that is reflected in your pay level. And if you're seeking a second job to increase your income, I would suspect it's not reflected adequately in your pay level. But there you are. Can they enforce it? Well, if it's in your contract and you've agreed to it, courts and tribunals are very keen on the letter of the contract. Whether there's any legislation prohibiting it, I think you'd have to ask somebody who specialises in that field, sit in the Vice Bureau or the like. Can they find out? Well, again, it depends on the work you're doing. There should be no way through the administration system of the Inland Revenue and any of that they could find out, but it is possible. And in any event, depends what you're doing, doesn't it? If you're working in a bar and the boss comes in, then you're spotted and that's it. Nought to be done. You are hung, drawn and quartered. I'd have a word with the trade union if there is one, or alternatively have a word with the Citizens Advice Bureau or some other advice agency that covers that kind of area. And the final word on that is that you always take a risk. Even if the organisation you get advice from says they can't do it, and you take the risk and you lose your job, you're then fighting from unemployment rather than fighting from employment. So you've always got to be wary of that. 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Mairead O'Kane.
The Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce is criticising the complexity of the revised plans for the congestion charge. There'll now be a £5 maximum daily charge, and lorries will be exempt for the first 12 months. The former Paymaster General Geoffrey Robinson says Gordon Brown is right to increase government borrowing. Some economists have criticised what the Prime Minister says is a responsible course to tackle the economic downturn. And charities which help sick and disabled people have expressed concern about an overhaul of the benefits system. New rules coming into force today across the UK mean people might have their payments cut if they refuse to attend interviews with job advisors. Manchester's weather, sunshine and showers, highs of 9 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
Watch out for some delays in Rochdale at the moment. Milnrow Road is closed off in both directions. That's because of an unsafe railway bridge. It's between Molesworth Street and Fishwick Street, so it's affecting traffic between Rochdale and the M62. Also in Oldham, through some roadworks, there's queuing traffic. It's Ashton Road in both directions between Hathershaw Lane and Park Parade. It's because of the roadworks on Cavendish Street, just outside Asda. And the M6 southbound is heavy from 21A Croft to 20 at the Lim interchange. If you'd like to update us, please do call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Helen Wakefield.
With more updates than the other guys.
2020 traffic.
A very good day to you. Dave in Knutsford said a couple of weeks ago, a caller mentioned that women at government agencies were taking the mickey regarding time off, although it also related to sickies, job sharing, sabbaticals, as well as maternity leave. I now hear of an official complaint being made by staff working for Natural England because of the fact that 10 women in a department of around 50 are now off on maternity leave with no replacements to ease the burden. Is it the government body who's at fault here for not having contingency planned, or is there a finite budget that they have to work within? I believe, says Dave, but can't confirm, that a lengthy and costly research project has been abandoned due to one lady who signed up to a 3-year contract falling pregnant. I suppose that must happen, yes. Yeah. It's difficult. If I was an employer, particularly a small firm, I would think long and hard before employing a woman of childbearing age who was in a relationship. How you would find that out? Well, the age you'd find out, the relationship you'd have to find out at interview. But I'd think long and hard about it, because I know all the rights and wrongs of it, but in the end you're running a business to make money, and you don't want to have to retrain somebody halfway through. The same would apply to people with disabilities. I know there are helps available and the like, but you would have to think long and hard about it, wouldn't you? And that's relevant today. The government has changed with effect from. The government has changed the way that people with disabilities will be entitled to benefit. The government is determined to get more people who are currently off on long-term sickness back to work. That often involves people who are disabled, or people with disabilities, or different abilities, if you want the patronisation of modern language. But it's all very well saying that employers can get help, but they would think long and hard. There used to be legislation, I don't know whether it's still on the statute books, but there used to be legislation that all employers above a certain number, I think it was 20, but I could be wrong, all employers above a certain number had to have a small percentage of people who were registered as disabled. That used to be the rule. It wasn't very often implemented, and very rarely was anybody brought to book for not obeying it, but it did used to be the rule. Whether it still is, I know not. I hesitate and hasten at the same time to say that the BBC, a large employer like that, are actually very, very good at, if you like, seeing beyond the disability, seeing beyond the gender, seeing beyond the colour. 0161 228 2255. Alan, I've got the answer to this congestion conundrum. Simply just abolish schools, colleges and universities. Thanks to half-term holidays, it took me 20 minutes to get from Leigh to Manchester this supposed rush hour morning on near deserted roads. Yes, I appreciate my idea borders on the imbecilic, but no one willingly journeys in rush hour. To penalise them with a tax is an affront. Now, if kids walk to school, it would solve child obesity too. That's Derek in Leigh. Joe in Whalley Range. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Alan. I've just got to have a rant about this congestion.
You have a rant, mate.
How long have you got?
Well, probably about a quarter of an hour before the next headlines. We're not missing them, so go on.
Right, this whole thing is built on a tissue of lies. Labour lies. Bear in mind the laws on libel. I'll be careful what I say. But let's go back in a little bit of history. Tony Blair, with this thing about advertising tobacco on race cars, he was quoted as saying, no, I'm not that kind of guy. And then years later it's found out that he was implicated in this thing, this affair. Then later we got Alistair Darling, when he was Minister of Transport. Just before the local elections, he said, he's come to a decision about the metro link in Manchester and the surrounding areas. But because it's just before the local election, I'm going to withhold my decision until after the elections, because I don't want to be seen to have influenced the vote in any way. And then after the vote was cast and all these Labour people got kept in their seats, the Metrolink plans fell short in a lot of ways, in a lot of areas. And then there was you with Ruth Kelly at the Labour conference when you gave her a direct question, are you going to resign? Instead of yes or no, or even no comment, she just fogged the issue. And then hours after, she announced she was resigning. You can't trust these people. Richard Lees, on Radio Manchester, he was adamant that the congestion charge was the way forward. It's the only way. And halfway through the programme, he did a U-turn and then said, all right, we'll have a referendum then, and I'll go by the decision of the referendum. He later came back on BBC Radio Manchester, and I asked him a question about the M60, because it was heard in the media that the M60 was going to become a toll road, and then it dropped off the radar, and asked him about it. He said there's no proposals at present to make the M60 into a toll road. But the thing is, no proposal at present doesn't mean it's not on the agenda for tomorrow. So I pressed him about this, and eventually he admitted that there might be a plan to make the M60 into a toll road. Now, to say there's no proposals and then admit there's proposals, was that too a lie?
Well, even in what you've just quoted, you made the mistake of changing the comment.
Go on.
Now, Sir Richard Leese may well have said there are no proposals for the toll road, for the M60, no proposals at present for the toll road for the M60 to become a toll road. But it is possible that discussions were taking place. I personally don't think there are. I do know that central government are looking at toll roads for motorways generally. I've mentioned this before. There is a tender out at the moment for companies to bid to implement a toll scheme, not one where people will have to pay, but to actually do everything but make the charge, as it were, to see what toll roads would contribute or cost. So there is now, if a government is looking at that at the moment, one presumes they're looking at it as one of the options for the future. So to say that it's not being considered would be a lie, but to say that there were proposals would also be a lie, for no such proposal exists for the M60. But if you pin Sir Richard to the floor and say, can you guarantee in the next decade that there will be no toll charge on the M60, his answer to that question has to be, no, I can't make that guarantee, primarily because the decision is not in his hands.
Yes, but he did make the guarantee on the programme.
Well, it depends on the question, doesn't it? If the question is, are there any proposals, or is there a plan, he replied, from what you've told me, I'm not quoting anything I know, just what you've told me, he replied, there are no proposals for that presently.
Yes, and exactly. There are no proposals for that at present, means for the moment, but tomorrow is another matter.
Well, yes, it does mean exactly that, because he, like you and I, cannot predict the future.
Right, okay.
Now,
but you plan for the future, surely.
Well, you do plan for the future, but you can't plan everything.
I know that.
At the moment, the transport authorities in Greater Manchester are concentrating on the TIF proposal. That's it. That's where their energies are going. Now, if the TIF referendum fails, or is a no vote, I don't know what will happen next, and I suspect Richard Leese doesn't know either.
Right. Now, I did question him about the inner ring, because there are no set guidelines for it. It's altering all the time. You look at the map, and it's got 1, 2, 3, maybe about 8 variations to the inner ring. And I asked him about this, and he said, oh yes, that will become more apparent when you get the just before the ballot. I said, how do you mean? He said, well, we'll send out details of what the inner ring road is going to be.
Right.
You might even get it in the ballot paper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, sending information, if you're going into a political election, you are not allowed to send information with the ballot paper. All you can receive is the ballot paper and how to fill it in.
Well, that isn't the case here.
It's so political, whichever way you look at it.
Well, I don't really know whether I want to get in a conversation about whether it's political, because, frankly, this conversation we're having now is political, as is the decision whether I'll have jam or marmalade on my bread tomorrow. Everything is political, because politics is everything. But this TIF referendum has been decided that what they will do is they will ask a specific question, are you for or against the TIF proposals, yes or no? And they will include with the ballot paper, because it's not a party political election, they will include with the ballot paper a leaflet, a brochure if you will, explaining what the TIF proposals are. So already it's not operating in an identical way to a party political election.
Yeah, I'll take that point. But one thing that does really worry me is that in Chorlton, they've done this bus corridor improvement, transport improvement scheme.
Yeah.
You ought to go there and see what happens now that the buses have got priority. The place comes to a standstill several times a day, several times an hour.
Okay, well...
And it's caused by the priority of the buses.
You say it comes to a standstill.
Oh, yeah.
I've not experienced it, so here's my question for you.
Go on, then.
When you say it comes to a standstill, does it bring the buses to a standstill as well?
No, the buses bring everything to a standstill.
No, listen to the question rather than tarting it up your own way like a good politician. Here's the question again. Does it bring the buses to a standstill? Not what effect do the buses have on the traffic, but do the buses have a fairly clear run?
No.
They don't. Right.
Because the first bus pulls up at a stop, buses 2, 3 and 4 are stuck out in the junction waiting for a space to move to the stop.
Well, they don't have to pull out, do they? But here's the question, dead easy. If I got on a bus travelling 1 mile on the road you just described...
You know what I mean? It's Chalton Cross.
Yeah, but if I got on a bus on the road that you just described, would I travel at the same speed on that bus as a person next to me in a motor car, or would I travel more quickly?
I don't think either would progress either faster or slower.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. If that is the case, then it clearly isn't working.
That is true.
And we're going to get a lot more of them.
Okay, then.
But hopefully, when we do get a lot more buses, as they say we will, if the answer to the TIF referendum is yes, and the congestion charge comes in, people will say, I'm not paying a £5 or whatever the figure is at the time, I'm going on the bus.
But incidentally, one thing I have found out, is that the way the council have marked the roads at junctions is creating a lot of congestion unnecessarily, whereby they're having the straight ahead and right turn as one lane, with a free lane in a lot of places turning left. So you get one car wanting to turn right, and then you get a whole chain of traffic behind them, can't move because of one car wanted to turn right. Or not so much one car, but one vehicle. Whereas the left lane is absolutely empty.
The reality is, in this country of ours, that we have the chronic disadvantage of being old. Had we had the opportunity like America did...
Yeah, we could build wide streets.
We would have built wide streets.
Yeah, but why not have straight ahead and left, as opposed to straight ahead and right?
I don't know. It depends on the junction, and I'm not in a position to know. But when Manchester City changed the traffic flow in the city centre with all its one-way streets, it was a complete and utter mess for about a month.
Do you know where the biggest
afterwards.
mess is? Is at the bottom end of the Princess Road extension, where it goes onto the roundabout under the M60.
You may well be correct. I've no idea. Everyone will phone in now and say, oh, no, you ain't seen nothing yet. Good on you, Joe.
All right,
enjoy the referendum, whatever. NH in Tameside points out local authorities have no control over motorways and other roads which are managed by the Highways Agency, which may be some explanation as to why Sir Richard Leese gave the answers he gave, which Joe claims are contradictory, but I think are simply two separate answers to two different questions. My guess is that he gave Richard Leese an idea, and that's why he won't commit. So Gordon said. So when he said, "Are they going to make the M60 a toll road?" Sir Richard went, "That's a good idea." And when it comes in, Joe, you'll be the one to blame, and I'm going to give him your address. And also from Gordon, in assistance to the gentleman that emailed about the employer refusing him to work elsewhere, Gordon says, and Gordon's an employer, I think it's fair for me to tell you that, Gordon's an employer, and he says, such a clause in your contract would be called restraint of trade and would thus diminish your right to work as you wish. So one does have the right to work. One has the right to ply one's trade. There are certain industries where such clauses are legitimate and permissible. Military service, for a start. The police, fire service, and other jobs, although it's changed slightly in the fire service. I think in the fire service now, if you don't have another job, you're dismissed on the spot, but only after you've been in the tumble dryer for an hour. 0161228. It's just two news stories clicked together, don't worry. 01612282255. And Alan, one of our daughters, joined the Quaranks. Queen Alexandra's Royal Army Nursing Corps, if I remember. The Quaranks is an SEN, state-enrolled nurse. When she got to Staff Sergeant, she did a degree and got a commission as an SRN, eventually retiring as a Major. Her husband joined the physical training corps as a squaddie, transferred to the medical corps, got a commission and retired as a full colonel. In the Royal Navy, the ones that joined as ratings and showed promise went on the upper yardsman promotion ladder, fast-tracked to a commission. That's Keith in Blackpool. It's amazing how many people around here have military experience. Steve in Chorlton says, in my opinion, the congestion charge is fast becoming a farce. As you quite rightly implied earlier, the moment you start giving people or groups discounts or exempting them, then the whole thing starts to fall apart. For example, it's proposed that lorries will be exempt for the first 12 months. Why lorries and not cars? Do lorries create less congestion and pollution? 2. Those on the minimum wage will get discounts. Why? What about those on pensions, benefits and the like? 3. Taxis won't pay. Why? If there's only one charge for multiple crossings of rings, then I don't see why taxis shouldn't pay. Stephen Chorlton says, I may be naive, but I thought the purpose of a congestion charge was to reduce congestion. If discounts or exemptions are made, then surely the amount of congestion will not drop. Maybe this is a ploy by those in favour to guarantee we get the loan and no reduction in congestion. Either way, those paying it in the future are likely to be those who have fairly OK jobs, earning a modest amount as usual. Sounds like me then. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. Text number 07786 206 951. You can talk about anything. You don't have to be an ex-squaddie who hates the congestion charge to get on, but it helps. Or even chain yourself to railings like the lady earlier. It's 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Mairead O'Kane.
A teacher from Wiggin's been given a suspended jail sentence after pleading guilty to possessing indecent images of children. Stephen Royal of Spalding Drive in Standish Lower Grand was found to have downloaded almost 1,000 indecent images of children. The Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce says criticising the complexity of the revised plans for the congestion charge. There'll now be a £5 maximum daily charge and lorries will be exempt for the first 12 months. And Bolton Council say they hope to recover at least 2/3 of the £6 million they'd invested in an Icelandic bank. £4 million was in a UK subsidiary of Landsbanki, and the administrators say their assets are equal to their liabilities. Manchester's weather, sunshine and showers this afternoon, highs of 9 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
In Rochdale today, Milnrow Road, the A640, that remains closed off in both directions because of an unsafe railway bridge. That's between Molesworth Street and Fishwick Street. It's affecting traffic travelling between Rochdale and the M62. And in Oldham, there's congestion on Ashton Road. That's in both directions between Hathershaw Lane and Park Parade. It's through the roadworks that are on Cavendish Street, just outside Asda. If you'd like to update us, please do call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Helen Wakefield.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Joanne Smith.
Good afternoon. Cristiano Ronaldo has been named FIFA Pro World Player of the Year by his fellow professionals. The Manchester United winger, who scored 42 goals last season, is also expected to win the Ballon d'Or and the FIFA World Player of the Year awards. Well, Ronaldo has also been reported as telling a Spanish newspaper that he's keen to remain at Old Trafford. Ronaldo's teammate Rio Ferdinand has been named in the World Team of the Year, along with Chelsea's John Terry and Liverpool's Steven Gerrard and Fernando Torres. Well, Johnny Evans believes he and Manchester United are reaping the benefits of his previous loan spells at Sunderland. The Northern Irishman is looking to establish himself as a regular part of United's back four and thinks his time at the Stadium of Light will help him.
Can't speak more highly of my time at Sunderland. You know, I'm grateful for Roy Keane for giving me the chance to play Premier League football, and it was a nice step in the Championship, and then to go back there, I picked up a lot of experience. I think I played 15 games last year in the Premier League, and you know, Sunderland, you know, we weren't exactly high flying in the league. You know, sometimes it was a scrap week in, week out. We did a lot of defending, and as a defender, you know, I really think it benefited me.
Oldham's players were made to spend their day off yesterday on the training field. Boss John Sheridan called his squad in for extra practice after describing Saturday's defeat at Swindon as their worst performance of the season. Well, after conceding 5 goals in their last 3 matches, Boss John Sheridan is calling for an improvement.
The goals we're giving away at the moment are an absolute joke. The way we're conceding at the moment is a schoolboy. Very schoolboy errors, and people who have done well at the start of the season are not doing well now, and it shouldn't happen.
Manchester City boss Mark Hughes is facing a trio of fitness doubts ahead of Wednesday's trip to Middlesbrough. Brazilian striker Joe missed yesterday's win over Stoke with tonsillitis, while captain Richard Dunn and youngster Ched Evans were forced out of action with chest and knee injuries respectively. While hat-trick hero Robinho, he has targeted 30 goals this season. Bolton will be without the suspended Gavin McCann for Wednesday's game against Everton. Mustafa Riga and Ricardo Garner will both come into contention. Harry Redknapp has made his first appointment to his backroom staff since taking over at Tottenham. Redknapp's former assistant at Portsmouth and Southampton, Kevin Bond, has joined him at White Hart Lane. Portsmouth, meanwhile, say there's no truth to suggestions that the former Bolton boss Sam Allardyce has been lined up to replace Redknapp at Fratton Park. Current Pompey assistant boss Tony Adams will talk to the club today. Curzon Ashton are just one game away from making the FA Cup first round proper for the first time in their history. They'll face a replay tonight against Hinckley to getting a draw on Saturday. Now, if they make it through, they'll play Exeter at home. And Curzon boss Gary Lowe told BBC Radio Manchester he's expecting a hard match.
We don't think for 1 second that, could have earned a draw down there, that this is a gimme. It'll be very tough. They're a good side. Obviously, they feel like they could have won it Saturday, so there's unfinished business for them. It'll be a tough game, but we feel we didn't really play well Saturday, although we hung in, and we think maybe a few more lads believe now that we can turn them over, and hopefully tonight we can do it.
Kevin Peterson says he's concerned about the lighting in Antigua ahead of England's $20 million match against the Stanford Superstars on Saturday. There were a number of drop catches in his side's narrow victory over Middlesex in the Stanford Super Series at the weekend. And finally, the former double Olympic 1500 metres freestyle champion, Grant Hackett, is retiring from swimming.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
Our local Football League sides are in action tomorrow evening. We've got them all covered in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester.
We touched on nuclear weapons earlier when we spoke to Pat, who's resisting. She's chained together with many other protesters outside the Aldermaston base. And we got into a conversation about whether they've made any nuclear weapons, that is, and made any contribution to peace in the last 50 years. Well, Ted in Moston says, the nuclear weapons we have in this country are the reason we're still alive. The Soviet Union didn't care if it murdered millions of people because it had one grand aim of imposing socialism on everyone. If they dropped a nuclear weapon on Birmingham, don't you think it would have been a good idea to throw one at Moscow? The CND movement emerged from Soviet sympathisers who wanted the Russians to invade. That's Ted in Moston. 0161 228 2255. Maria says, I would like to quote a few lines from a professor of transport planning at Loughborough University who says on the subject of congestion, road pricing on passenger cars is a socially unfair and probably ineffective method of reducing congestion. For the private motorist, it is severely regressive on the poor and those of moderate means. The fairest means of controlling the usage of the private car is congestion itself. We each give up time to a chosen trip. The valuation is proportionate to the means of the various individuals. Maria says, I think he's got a good point. Maria, who can say? 0161 228 2255. Stephen in Greenfield. Hi, Stephen.
How do you do?
I'm well.
I am. I have a query concerning the congestion charge, which has bothered me for a while now, since the idea was first mooted.
Okay.
I used to be a Manchester resident, and then I saw the light and moved away. But because my client base up here needs my services, I on occasions come back to the area to do work, which is why I'm in Greenfield now. My concern is, if I'm a visitor, not a rate payer based in the area, how does the charge affect me? I've read the reports, I've read the press articles and listened to your programme and others, and I still can't get my head around the fact that I don't know how it actually physically affects me. If it's designed to alleviate any problems of congestion, say between 7:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, then it won't, because everybody's got to go to work. If it means I park up at the side of the road and don't move till 9 o'clock, I'm prepared to do that. So how can the city make money out of me? Some guidance is required.
Well, How it will affect you is the same way it'll affect people who live in the area, and that is if you cross the boundary lines, of which there are 2 diameters around. If you see Manchester City as the centre, there are then, I've described it previously as a donut. So there's the bit in the middle, and then there's the 2 boundaries of the donut, as it were. If you cross either of those boundaries in the relevant direction at the appropriate times, you will be charged rather like you're charged if you go over the Severn Bridge. Only you don't pay cash on the nose there and then, but you will be charged. If you do not cross those lines, you will not be charged. Now, there are various exceptions for a variety of vehicles and individuals. What you won't get as a non-Greater Manchester resident is a say in the referendum. Whether you would, I'm broadening this to more than just you, whether you would get the discounts for those who work on, let us say you work on the minimum wage in London and you come to visit once a year your granny in Manchester, whether you'll get the minimum wage discount, I've no idea. That's rather more complicated for advance of the charge, but certainly it will affect you. If you cross those boundaries, you will have to pay.
OK, let me throw one at you and see how it lands.
Please do.
If I'm I am a glazier. Let us say I have an emergency call-out inside the area.
Yes.
And I broach that area in the early hours of the morning before the charge comes into force.
Yes.
But have to leave the area because my work is done.
Yes.
During the charge period. I take it I'm still charged.
Well, the answer to your question is yes, because it was a bald question. But if I can just tighten it up a little, if you come into Manchester to do a job, and then in the early hours of the morning, you're either a very, very slow worker, or it won't apply to you, because the charge for going out of the... So if you go in an outwards direction over the boundaries, you only pay in the evening, because the congestion in the evening is going out, not coming in.
Right.
So it's not that you pay in either direction at either end of the day. The present proposal is if you cross the boundaries on an inward direction in the morning rush hour, you pay. If you cross the boundaries in an outward direction in the evening rush hour, you pay. But if you cross at any other times, you don't pay.
And that's a simplistic answer of the proposal.
It is extremely simplistic, but I think it more or less covers it, to be honest.
Right, and these proposals are obviously still at the early stages. Do they have a definitive time when it will be introduced?
Well, they are not at the early stages because the referendum takes place in about 5 weeks' time in the early days of December. Right. However, they are proposals. They are not decisions. They are proposals. There are some further adjustments to those proposals on the stocks at the moment, which are detailed in the Financial Times and have some detail in other newspapers, but the Financial Times seems to have it fully covered. However, those proposals, those changes to the proposals, go to a committee meeting of all the leaders of the Association of Greater Manchester on Friday. If they vote in favour of those proposals in their entirety, they will form part of what is being offered presently. But of course, there is many a slip twixt cup and lip. What many people appear not to know is that even if the referendum votes yes for the TIF proposals and thus the congestion charge, it still isn't guaranteed that it will go ahead, because the vote yes gives us, the leaders of Manchester, gives them the right to apply for the TIF money. It doesn't guarantee getting it, although I think it's a fairly cut and dried, but they have to then apply. So all you're doing when people, this won't apply to you, Stephen, but when people vote for the congestion charge or the TIF proposals, whatever phraseology you use, if the referendum says yes, the wheels are then set in motion to apply for the money. It's not a cut and dried deal even yet. So obviously there will be changes.
And knowing Sir Richard Lees as I do, I'm sure he'll be at the forefront of any campaign to get the money in as quick as possible, to get the congestion charge up and running as soon as possible.
Well, yes, I'm sure he would, because Sir Richard is very definitely in favour of the TIF proposals, and he would want the money being spent in Manchester as quickly as possible. As a very successful leader of Manchester City Council, he always wants money spent in Manchester, particularly if he can get it off somebody else.
Absolutely.
There is a guarantee that the congestion charge will not come in. There are two hurdles, if you like. One is it won't come in until a very substantial proportion of the supposed proposed benefits are in place, and in any event, the second one is it won't come in before 2013. That's it.
That's a definite.
Well, there's nothing definite. It's politics.
I understand.
Well, that's the declaration. It's a definite possibility.
Yeah.
That's the declaration, yeah. It's like when you're negotiating with a large glass contractor and he says, is that your final price? And you say, very definitely yes, I cannot go no lower. And he walks away and you say, oh, but just a minute.
Yes.
It's gone. All right, Stu, have a good day.
I will. Thank you for clarifying all those points.
Well, I don't know whether I have, but I've tried.
You have indeed. Yes, at least I know I can come to Manchester as I wish, at least till 2013 without penalty.
It would appear so, yes.
Thank you very
much
indeed.
0161228 2255.
So, Alan, an interesting formation. What do you think?
Well, I agree the basic shape's working fine. It's smooth down the flanks and pretty good up front, but the work at the back is unbelievably shoddy. Shocking.
I wouldn't laugh. You're having your haircut next.
Do something different and make a difference for BBC Children in Need. For your fundraising pack, go to bbc.co.uk/Pudsey.
/Pudgy. Quite. Alan in Macclesfield, hi.
Afternoon, Alan. How are you?
I'm very well.
I have a couple of questions, really, regarding this charge.
Go.
One is, will the councillors in Manchester City Centre be paying the charge to get into there? And is the reason for that because it's their job? And if so, what about everyone else's job?
The answer to your question is, I don't know. I read somewhere a while ago that city centre... You see, first of all, city centre councillors are all councillors of Manchester. There are 10 authorities involved, another 9 apart from Manchester. So I don't know whether there will be a blanket rule about councillors. I suspect the rule will be negotiated at a later date. I read somewhere that councillors in the city centre have said that they won't be paying, but I can't remember that. In the end, it will form part of their remuneration, if you like. So even if they pay it, I suspect when the rewards for being a councillor are negotiated, it will be taken into consideration.
And I assume that your suspicions that they won't pay will be the same as mine.
I don't know. Frankly, whenever I sit here and say I don't know, it isn't because I'm trying to hide what I do know, it's because I don't know.
And the other question I have for you is, why am I paying road tax if they're going to charge us on the roads again?
The answer to that is a very, very simple one, and it is road tax has got absolutely nothing to do with roads. It is just, first of all, it's a vehicle excise licence, and it is just a tax of... thank you. It is. I can tell you now, councillors are presently not on the exempt list, so the article I read was probably an article asking the questions that you just asked, but local authority councillors and district councillors are not on the list of those who would be exempt from the charge. To get back to road tax, it's a road fund licence, it's just a tax for owning a vehicle. That's it.
They actually changed that, didn't they? At one time it was called the road tax, and it's a vehicle...
That may be so, but it is now. It's rather like when you buy a car, you pay VAT. You know, it's just a tax. That's it. It's nothing else.
Most marvellous. And the other one is the idea that all the councils are now going to be able to charge for all the trunk roads in their areas.
I don't understand that question or that statement. Say it again. I'm sorry.
Right. The article that I saw recently, funnily enough, was raised by someone in Wales, where all the major trunk roads were going to be, or the option to make them into toll roads was being given to the local councils.
I can't. If that was the case, I wouldn't be able to understand it, because the project that the government has embarked upon to assess the merit or otherwise of road pricing is only now at the very, very early stages. I mentioned earlier that the process that they're going through is they currently have an offer, a tender out for people to offer to operate a road charging scheme on behalf of the government as an experiment. So I think the government has yet to make up its mind about road charging, and I very much suspect that local authorities have not been given that power.
I believe there's a bill to be put through, but however, we'll go on.
If there is a bill to be put through, then they haven't been given the power, because the bill would be the thing that would start it off. If you want to talk longer, Alan, I'm afraid it'll be 24 hours late. Well, 22 hours later, because we're about done now. I'm going, and you are too. Thanks, mate. Have a good day. Be a man. Come off the fence, says Dave in Chariton. Greater Manchester wants to know where you stand. It's time to decide. So come on. Is it jam or marmalade? Actually, I don't eat either very often, but such is life. I've respect for my teeth. But, yeah, never mind. I'll see you tomorrow. Ta-ra now.
You woke up after a night out